I've been watching screens for 11 years. 11 years of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, coffee going cold in styrofoam cups, and the endless rotation of 37 security cameras monitoring every corner of Westfield Shopping Center. You learn to see patterns in this job. The way shadows fall at 3 a.m., how the cleaning crew moves through their routes, the predictable emptiness of retail space after closing. But what I saw at 2:47 a.m. on October 15th changed everything I thought I knew about predictable. My name is Jake Martinez, and I'm the overnight security supervisor for one of the largest shopping centers in the tri-state area. 2.4 million square feet of retail space for anchor stores and enough surveillance equipment to monitor a small city. The night shift runs from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and most nights, the biggest excitement involves teenagers trying to sneak back in after closing or delivery drivers mixing up their schedules. Most nights, I was completing my routine camera sweep when monitor 17 flickered. Just a brief static burst, nothing unusual. These systems are 15 years old and glitches happen. But then monitor 23 did the same thing. Then 31, then 12. For different cameras, for different sections of the mall, all glitching at exactly 2:47 a.m. I pulled up the diagnostic panel. All systems showed green. Power levels normal. Signal strength optimal. No recorded errors in the maintenance log. The cameras themselves looked fine, panning and focusing as they should. But something felt wrong. I switched to manual override mode and began cycling through each camera individually. Food court, west entrance, main concourse, department store anchors. Everything looked normal. Empty corridors stretching into darkness. Emergency lighting casting long shadows between storefronts. The kind of institutional quiet that fills large spaces after business hours. Then I saw her. Monitor 17 showed the food court, and there was a woman walking between the tables. Not running, not hiding. Walking, like she belonged there. Like the mall was open and she was just another customer grabbing a late dinner. I blinked hard and looked again. Still there, middle-aged, wearing what looked like a navy blue blazer and carrying a small purse. Her movement was casual, unhurried. She paused at the Asian fusion counter, seemed to study the menu, then continued walking toward the main concourse. My first thought was obvious. Someone had stayed past closing. It happens more than you'd think. Customers lose track of time, hide in bathrooms during security sweeps, or employees forget to use proper exit procedures. Standard protocol 5 covers these situations. Locate the individual, escort them to the nearest exit, file an incident report. But here's what it makes sense. I switched to monitor 23, which covers the main concourse directly adjacent to the food court. If she was walking from the food court toward the main concourse, she should appear on this camera within 30 seconds. She never did. I cycled through every camera between the food court and the main concourse. Monitors 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Nothing. No sign of her anywhere. But when I switched back to monitor 17, she was gone from the food court too. I pulled up the playback feature and rewound monitor 17 by 5 minutes. Empty food court. 2:45 a.m. empty. 2:46 a.m. empty. 2:47 a.m. And suddenly she was there, mid-stride between the tables, as if she had materialized from nothing. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. exactly. I checked the adjacent cameras again, this time using playback mode. Monitor 18 showed the corridor connecting the food court to the main concourse. At 2:47 a.m., the corridor was empty. No one entered. No one exited. But on monitor 17, she was clearly walking in that direction. This is where training kicks in. When something doesn't make sense, you document everything. I pulled out incident report form 27-B and began filling in the details. Time, location, camera numbers, description of anomaly. The form has checkboxes for various scenarios. Unauthorized access, equipment malfunction, suspicious activity, medical emergency. None of them seemed to fit what I was seeing. I tried the equipment malfunction box. It was the most logical explanation. Old cameras, aging wiring, maybe some kind of signal interference creating false images. I've seen plenty of technical glitches that look strange until maintenance explained the underlying cause. But the image quality was perfect. She wasn't a digital artifact or pixelated distortion. The resolution was crystal clear. I could see the details of her clothing, the way her hair moved as she walked, even the reflection of the emergency lighting on her purse. I saved the footage to the secure server and flagged it for management review. Then I completed my standard patrol route, walking through each section of the mall with my flashlight and radio. I checked every entrance, every service corridor, every store that might have been left unlocked. I found nothing out of place. The mall was secure, empty, locked down tight. But at 3:15 a.m., I was back at my station reviewing the footage again when something else caught my attention. I had the timestamp display enabled, and I noticed something I had missed before. The woman's walking speed was perfectly consistent. Not just casual, but mechanically precise. Each step covered exactly the same distance. Each pause lasted exactly the same duration. I measured her movement across the food court using the software's distance calculation tool. From her first appearance to her last visible position took exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds. 17 minutes and 32 seconds of perfectly consistent movement through a mall that had been closed for over 3 hours. I printed out the incident report and placed it in the management mailbox for morning review. Then I poured another cup of coffee and tried to focus on the remaining hours of my shift. But I kept glancing at monitor 17, watching that empty food court, wondering if 2:47 a.m. would bring another impossible visitor. The rest of the night passed without incident. No more glitches, no more unexplained figures, just the normal, predictable emptiness of retail space after closing. But as I prepare my end-of-shift summary, I realized something that made my hands shake slightly as I typed. In 11 years of overnight security work, I had never seen anything that couldn't be explained by human behavior or technical malfunction. This was different. This was the beginning of questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. The call came at 6:30 a.m., just as I was finishing my shift report. Patricia Hernandez, the mall director, never calls security directly. She sends memos, schedules meetings, follows proper administrative channels. But there she was on the phone, asking me to stay late for an urgent review of my incident report. I found her in the administrative offices 40 minutes later, sitting behind a desk covered with file folders and what looked like surveillance printouts. She's been with Westfield for over 20 years, and I'd never seen her look this tired. "Jake, I need you to walk me through last night's incident. Every detail." I repeated what I documented. The timestamp, the camera locations, the woman in the navy blazer, the impossibility of her movement pattern. Patricia listened without interruption, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she opened one of the file folders and pulled out a form I'd never seen before. "Jake, I'm implementing Protocol 7-Alpha, effective immediately. This requires additional documentation for any unexplained camera activity. Protocol 7-Alpha. In 11 years, I'd never heard of it. What exactly does that protocol cover?" She handed me a thick manual bound in gray plastic. "Everything you need to know is in Section 4. But first, I need you to review archived footage from the past week. Same time frame, same camera locations." The manual felt heavier than it should have. The cover was unmarked except for a date stamp, March 1987. "Patricia, what happened in 1987? Her pen stopped moving across the legal pad. "That's covered in Section 7 of the manual. Right now, I need you to focus on the footage review." She led me to a secure viewing room I'd never been in before. It was located behind the main security office, accessible only with a special key card. Inside were monitors, playback equipment, and filing cabinets marked with years going back decades. The archive footage is organized by date and camera number. Start with October 8th and work forward to last night. Same cameras, same time frame. The first night showed nothing unusual. Empty food court at 2:47 a.m. Empty corridors. Standard overnight appearance. The second night was the same. Empty, quiet, normal. The third night, monitor 17 flickered at exactly 2:47 a.m. And there she was again. Same woman, same navy blazer, same walking pattern through the food court. Same 17 minutes and 32 seconds of impossible movement. I checked the adjacent cameras. Nothing. No sign of her anywhere except monitor 17. Fourth night, same thing. Fifth night, sixth night, every single night for the past week. She had appeared at precisely 2:47 a.m., walked through the food court for exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds, then vanished. I pulled up the timestamp logs. Every appearance was recorded. Every disappearance was documented. But no corresponding footage existed on any other camera. Patricia, I called through the intercom connecting to her office. I need to see more archived footage. How much more? All of it. Everything you have. An hour later, I was looking at footage from October 1st. Same pattern. September 15th. Same pattern. August 20th. Same pattern. This had been happening for months. I opened the gray manual to Section 4. Protocol 7-Alpha was established to document recurring anomalous camera activity that cannot be explained through standard technical analysis or human presence verification. The protocol required detailed logging of timestamps, camera locations, duration of anomalous activity, and any patterns in the observed phenomena. It also required immediate notification of mall management and preservation of all related footage. But here's what made my hands shake as I read. Protocol 7-Alpha was created in March 1987 following a previous incident requiring long-term monitoring and documentation. I flipped to Section 7. The pages were heavily redacted, but I could make out fragments, structural fire, multiple casualties, unexplained camera activity beginning approximately 6 months post-incident, recurring pattern established, containment protocols implemented. The rest was blacked out. I called Patricia's office. I need to see the complete Section 7. That's classified above your clearance level, Jake. What you need to know is that these incidents have been documented before. Your job is to maintain accurate records and follow the established protocols. How many times has this happened? Long pause. Jake, I need you to understand something. This mall has been in operation for 38 years. We've had multiple security supervisors during that time. Each one has encountered unusual activity. What happened to those supervisors? They were transferred to other locations after completing their documentation requirements. I looked at the stack of archived footage still waiting to be reviewed. Months of recordings, possibly years. Patricia, how long has she been appearing on these cameras? Another pause. Jake, I need you to focus on completing the current documentation. The historical context is less important than maintaining accurate records going forward. But I was already pulling up footage from earlier dates. June, April, January, last December. The same woman, the same time, the same impossible 17 minutes and 32 seconds. Every single night for months. She had been shopping in an empty mall, walking through corridors that showed no trace of her presence on any camera except monitor 17. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the screen showing last night's footage. The woman in the navy blazer, walking between empty food court tables at 2:47 a.m., completely unaware that she was being watched by someone who was beginning to understand that normal rules didn't apply here. Protocol 7-Alpha wasn't just about documentation. It was about containment. I spent the next 3 hours mapping her route with obsessive precision. Every step, every pause, every turn documented with timestamps and camera coordinates. What I discovered made the coffee in my stomach turn cold. She wasn't just walking randomly through the mall. She was shopping. The pattern became clear when I overlaid multiple nights of footage onto a mall floor plan. She always started at the food court, but that wasn't her destination. It was her entry point. From there, she moved with purpose to Electronics Express in the East Wing. I watched her browse the smartphone displays for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Her movements were deliberate, methodical. She'd pick up phones, examine them, set them down. The security cameras captured every gesture in perfect detail. But when I called Electronics Express that morning, the manager insisted no merchandise had been disturbed. Everything's exactly where we left it, he told me. Security seals intact, inventory counts match, display models in the exact same positions. But I was watching her handle those phones. I could see her fingers moving across the screens, testing the weight, comparing models side by side. From Electronics Express, she moved to Fashion Forward in the North Corridor. Another precise duration, 6 minutes and 43 seconds. She examined clothing on the racks, held items up to her shoulders, checked sizes. The same methodical shopping behavior I'd seen thousands of customers perform during regular hours. Fashion Forward's manager gave me the same response. Nothing disturbed. No inventory discrepancies. Everything exactly as they'd left it after closing. But there she was on the footage, shopping with clear intent and familiar efficiency. Her third stop was Prestige Jewelry near the main entrance. This visit lasted exactly 3 minutes and 19 seconds. She studied the display cases, pointing at specific pieces, nodding as if someone was explaining features and prices. Her body language suggested conversation, but she was completely alone. The jewelry store manager was more specific than the others. I personally count every piece before locking up. High-value inventory requires detailed documentation. Nothing has been moved, touched, or altered in any way. Yet the camera showed her engaging with the jewelry displays as naturally as any customer would during business hours. Her final destination was the most disturbing. She always ended at the old anchor store location in the southwest wing. The space had been vacant for 6 years, sealed off with temporary walls and security barriers. No active cameras inside, but I could track her approach on the adjacent monitors. She'd walk directly to the barriers, stand there for exactly 3 minutes and 18 seconds, then simply disappear. Not fade away, not walk out of frame. Just gone, like someone had switched off a light. I calculated the total duration of her shopping routine, 17 minutes and 32 seconds. The same precise time frame every single night. But here's what made my hands shake as I reviewed the footage. Her shopping behavior wasn't random or confused. She moved through the stores with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was looking for. Someone familiar with the layout, the inventory, the specific locations of desired items. Someone who had shopped there many times before. I pulled up the mall directory and cross-referenced the stores with employment records from Patricia's files. Electronics Express had been in the same location for 15 years. Fashion Forward had occupied that space for 12 years. Prestige Jewelry had been there for 22 years. But the old anchor store had a different history. It had housed Morrison's department store from the mall's opening in 1987 until it closed in 2019. The space had been vacant ever since. I found myself studying her appearance more carefully. The navy blazer looked professional but dated. Not obviously vintage, but not contemporary either. Her hairstyle seemed consistent across all the footage, unchanging from night to night. Even her purse maintained the same position, the same wear patterns. I started timing her movements within each store. At Electronics Express, she spent 47 seconds examining iPhones, 33 seconds looking at tablets, and the remaining time with accessories. At Fashion Forward, she focused on business attire in what appeared to be size 8 or 10. At Prestige Jewelry, she consistently examined pieces in the mid-range display case. These weren't the random browsing patterns of someone confused or lost. This was targeted shopping with specific preferences and clear objectives. I called Patricia's office. I need employee records for Electronics Express, Fashion Forward, and Prestige Jewelry. Anyone who worked at those stores between 1987 and 2019. Jake, that information is confidential. What specific reason do you have for requesting personnel files? The woman on the cameras. She's not just walking through the mall. She's shopping, and she knows exactly where everything is located. Long pause. Jake, I need you to focus on documenting the anomaly, not investigating historical employment records. Patricia, she's shopping for specific items in specific stores. Someone who shops that efficiently knows the inventory, knows the layout, has probably worked in retail. Jake, her tone carried a warning I couldn't ignore, but I also couldn't ignore what the footage was showing me. I'm requesting those employment records through official channels. Protocol 7-Alpha requires complete documentation of all relevant factors. Another pause. I'll have the records available for your review tomorrow morning. But Jake, I want to be very clear about something. Some information is classified for good reasons. Not everything you discover will have simple explanations. After hanging up, I sat in the secure viewing room staring at the frozen image on monitor 17. The woman in the navy blazer, reaching toward a smartphone display, her face showing the concentrated expression of someone making a purchasing decision. Someone who had been making the same purchasing decisions in the same stores at the same time every single night for months. Someone who was shopping in a mall that had been closed for hours, buying items that never disappeared from inventory, completing transactions that left no financial record. I rewound the footage and watched her shopping routine again, timing each movement, documenting each gesture. 17 minutes and 32 seconds of impossible commerce in an empty mall. Tomorrow, I would have employee records. Tomorrow, I might have answers. But tonight, I was beginning to understand that some customers never really leave. The employee records were waiting on my desk when I arrived for my shift. 3 manila folders, each marked with different store names and date ranges. But underneath them was something Patricia hadn't mentioned. A thick folder labeled Westfield Construction History, Confidential. I opened it first. The current mall wasn't the first shopping center on this location. Westfield Plaza had been built directly over the ruins of Northgate Shopping Center, which operated from 1965 to 1987. The original center had been smaller with different anchor stores, but the basic layout was remarkably similar. The construction timeline showed a 6-month gap between the old mall's destruction and the new mall's groundbreaking. But the reason for Northgate's closure made my coffee cup freeze halfway to my lips. Fire. March 15th, 1987. Started at 2:47 a.m. in the electrical system, the same timestamp when she appeared every night. The fire had spread rapidly through the old mall's infrastructure. The report listed multiple casualties, 3 security guards, 2 custodial staff, and several employees who had been working late inventory shifts. The old anchor store, Morrison's department store, had suffered the most damage. 5 employees trapped on the second floor. I cross-referenced the casualty list with the employee records Patricia had provided. Margaret Chen, jewelry department supervisor at Morrison's, 28 years old, scheduled for overnight inventory duty on March 15th, 1987. The photo in her personnel file made me drop the folder. It was her, the woman in the navy blazer. Same face, same hairstyle, same professional appearance. The photo was 37 years old, but she looked identical to the figure walking through our cameras every night. Margaret Chen had died in the 1987 fire. I pulled up the architectural plans comparing Northgate Shopping Center to our current layout. Morrison's department store had occupied the exact same location as our current vacant anchor space. The jewelry department had been located precisely where Prestige Jewelry now operated. The electronics section had been in the same position as Electronics Express. Margaret Chen had worked in jewelry, but regularly covered other departments during inventory shifts. According to her employment record, she was familiar with electronics, women's fashion, and jewelry operations. She had been shopping her own workplace. Every night for months, she had been visiting the stores where she used to work, examining inventory in departments she had once managed. I opened the construction folder deeper and found the original fire investigation report. The details were disturbing. The fire had started during a late-night inventory session. Several employees had been working past normal hours to prepare for a major sale event. They had been trapped when the electrical fire spread faster than expected. The investigation noted that the victims had been found in different sections of the store, suggesting they'd been attempting to complete their inventory tasks even as the fire spread. Margaret Chen had been found in the jewelry department, but witness statements indicated she had been moving between different sections throughout the evening, helping with various inventory counts. The same pattern she was following now. I called the city records office and requested the complete fire investigation file. What I learned made the fluorescent lights above my desk seem suddenly inadequate. The fire had occurred during the overnight shift change. The day staff had left at 6 p.m. The overnight crew was supposed to arrive at 11 p.m., but the fire started at 2:47 a.m., during what should have been routine overnight operations. The investigation revealed that several employees had volunteered to work additional hours to complete a comprehensive inventory project. They had been preparing for a major renovation that would modernize the old mall and expand several departments. Margaret Chen had been the inventory coordinator. Her job was to verify stock levels in jewelry, electronics, and fashion departments before the renovation began. The same 3 departments she visited every night on our cameras. I found her final timesheet in the employment records. March 14th, 1987. Clocked in at 2:30 p.m. for regular shift. Notation at bottom. Staying late for inventory project. Estimated completion 3:15 a.m. She had never completed that inventory. The fire had started 17 minutes after she was scheduled to finish. If she had been working her planned routine, she would have had exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds to complete the jewelry, electronics, and fashion counts before clocking out. The same duration of her nightly appearances. I pulled up the current night surveillance footage and watched her movement through the stores with new understanding. She wasn't randomly shopping. She was working. Each pause, each examination of merchandise, each methodical movement through the aisles followed the pattern of someone conducting inventory counts. She was still trying to finish her job. I looked at her personnel photo again. Professional, dedicated, the kind of employee who would stay late to ensure work was completed correctly. The kind of person who would feel responsible for unfinished tasks. The kind of person who might not realize she had been gone for 37 years. My radio crackled with the standard overnight check-in from mall management. Security desk, this is base. Status report. I looked at the surveillance monitors showing empty corridors, locked storefronts, and the familiar quiet of retail space after closing. In 6 hours, Margaret Chen would appear on monitor 17 and begin her nightly attempt to complete an inventory that had been interrupted by fire decades ago. Security desk to base. All clear. No incidents to report. But as I filed the employee records in my desk drawer, I realized that wasn't entirely true. There was an incident. There had been an incident for 37 years. Margaret Chen was still clocked in, still working, still trying to finish a job that had cost her everything. And nobody had bothered to tell her she could finally go home. I had to be certain. The personnel photo was 37 years old, and facial recognition technology wasn't infallible. But I needed definitive confirmation that the woman on our cameras was Margaret Chen. The mall security system included advanced biometric software, originally installed to identify shoplifters and banned individuals. I never used it for anything like this, but the system could cross-reference facial features against store databases. I uploaded Margaret's personnel photo and ran it against the previous night's footage. The computer processed for 3 minutes. Then it displayed a result that made my hands tremble. 97% facial match probability. The system identified the woman on monitor 17 as Margaret Chen with near certainty. But the timestamp showed the analysis had been completed on October 16, 2024. The computer had identified someone who died on March 15, 1987. I ran the same analysis on footage from different nights. October 10th, 97% match. September 25th, 98% match. August 14th, 96% match. Every single night, the facial recognition software confirmed the same impossible result. I decided to contact Margaret's family. The personnel records listed her emergency contact as Robert Chen, listed as brother. A current address in Millbrook, about 40 minutes from the mall. The phone rang 4 times before an elderly man answered. "Hello, this is Jake Martinez from Westfield Plaza Security. I'm trying to reach someone who might be related to Margaret Chen, who worked at Morrison's department store in 1987. Long pause. Margaret was my sister. She died in the fire. Why are you calling about her after all these years?" I explained that I was conducting a security review and needed to verify some employment records. I didn't mention the cameras. Not yet. Could you tell me about Margaret's work habits? Specifically, her shopping preferences and routine. Robert's voice softened. Margaret loved shopping. She knew every store in that mall better than the managers did. She'd work her shift in jewelry, then spend her breaks browsing electronics and clothing. Always said she needed to understand what customers wanted. My notebook froze in my hand. Did she have specific preferences? Particular stores or types of merchandise? Oh, absolutely. She was obsessed with the latest electronics. Always had to have the newest phone, the latest gadgets. And she dressed professionally because she believed it helped her connect with jewelry customers. She'd spend hours in the fashion section, picking out business attire. Electronics, fashion, jewelry, the exact pattern I'd been documenting. Robert, can you describe what Margaret typically wore to work? She had this navy blue blazer she loved. Wore it constantly. Said it made her look professional and approachable. She'd carry this small leather purse, always organized, always prepared. The same blazer, the same purse. Robert, I need to ask you something that might sound strange. Have you ever experienced anything unusual related to Margaret since the fire? Another long pause. Why would you ask that? I'm investigating some security footage that shows someone who resembles Margaret. I know it sounds impossible, but you see her too. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? My daughter works at the Barnes & Noble in Crossroads Mall, about 10 miles from Westfield. She's called me 3 times in the past year, insisting she's seen Margaret shopping there. Always late at night, always in that navy blazer, always looking at electronics and jewelry. I grabbed my pen. When did these sightings occur? The first was last December, then April, then September, always around the same time of night. My daughter would try to approach her, but Margaret would disappear around corners or into sections where there were no customers. Robert, has anyone else reported seeing Margaret? My nephew works security at Valley Plaza. He called me 6 months ago, said their cameras picked up someone matching Margaret's description shopping after hours. Same stores, same routine, same impossible timing. I was writing frantically. How many other locations? At least 4 that I know of. All shopping centers, all late-night sightings, all the same pattern of behavior. Margaret wasn't just appearing at our mall. She was visiting multiple locations, following the same inventory routine, shopping the same departments. Robert, I need to tell you something. We've been recording someone matching Margaret's description on our security cameras. Every night for months. Same time, same stores, same behavior patterns you just described. Silence stretched for nearly a minute. Robert, I've been waiting for this call for 37 years. What do you mean? Margaret was supposed to finish her inventory that night. She was the most dedicated employee Morrison's ever had. She used to say that incomplete work was a reflection of personal character. If there was a way for her to finish what she started, she would find it. You think she's trying to complete her final assignment? I think Margaret doesn't know she's dead. I think she's still trying to clock out. I looked at the surveillance monitors showing our empty mall. In 8 hours, Margaret Chen would appear on monitor 17 and begin her nightly attempt to finish 37-year-old inventory counts. Robert, what would it take for Margaret to finally complete her work? She needed to finish what she started. All departments, all counts, everything documented and filed properly. That's who Margaret was. She never left anything incomplete. After hanging up, I sat in the security office staring at Margaret's personnel photo. A dedicated employee who had volunteered to work late, who took pride in thorough work, who believed incomplete tasks reflected poorly on personal character. She was still working, still trying to complete her final shift, still unaware that she had been off the clock for 37 years. But now I knew she wasn't confined to our mall. She was visiting every shopping center in the region, trying to finish an inventory project that had been interrupted by fire. Margaret Chen was still on duty, and she wouldn't rest until her job was done. Robert's information about other shopping centers haunted me through the rest of my shift. If Margaret was appearing at multiple locations, then other security guards had to be experiencing the same impossible footage I was documenting. I started making calls. Valley Plaza Security put me through to their overnight supervisor, Marcus Williams. When I explained I was investigating unusual camera activity, his response was immediate. Navy blue blazer, small purse, shopping pattern between electronics, fashion, and jewelry. You've seen her every night for the past 8 months. We filed dozens of incident reports. Management keeps transferring our documentation to some regional office. Never get responses. What happened to the previous security supervisor? Tom Rodriguez. Great guy, 15 years of experience. Started reporting the anomalies last year. Became obsessed with documenting everything. Management transferred him to a facility in Oregon after he demanded access to historical records. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Did Tom mention anything about Protocol 7-Alpha? How do you know about that protocol? Because I'm living it. Same woman, same pattern, same impossible surveillance footage. Marcus lowered his voice. Jake, I need to tell you something. Tom left me his personal notes before the transfer. He'd been researching this for months. Found connections between multiple shopping centers across 3 states. What kind of connections? All built on sites of previous retail locations that experienced fires or major incidents. All reporting similar anomalies. All security supervisors eventually transferred after filing too many reports. I grabbed my notebook. How many locations? Tom documented 12 shopping centers, all experiencing the same phenomenon. Same woman, same time, same shopping pattern. But here's what's really disturbing. The incident started at different times. What do you mean? Our location started 8 months ago. Crossroads Mall reported their first sighting 14 months ago. Riverside Shopping Center has been documenting similar activity for over 2 years. She's expanding her territory. That's what Tom thought. Like she's working her way through every retail location in the region, trying to complete some kind of comprehensive inventory. I asked Marcus for Tom's contact information. Getting transferred to Oregon seemed suspicious, and I needed to understand what Tom had discovered. Tom Rodriguez answered on the first ring, and his voice carried a warning I recognized from my own recent conversations. Let me guess. Navy blazer, 2:47 a.m., electronics fashion jewelry pattern, and management is telling you to just document everything without asking questions. How many of us are there, Tom? At least 15 security supervisors that I know of. Probably more. We've started an informal network, sharing information about the sightings and management responses. Management is suppressing this. Jake, this goes deeper than individual mall management. There's a regional consortium that oversees multiple shopping centers. They have protocols in place for these incidents. They know exactly what's happening, and they have a system for managing security personnel who ask too many questions. The transfers. Once you start demanding real answers, once you push beyond basic documentation, they relocate you to facilities where the phenomena isn't occurring, effectively silencing witnesses. I looked around my security office, suddenly aware of how isolated I was. Tom, what did you discover before they transferred you? Margaret Chen isn't the only one. There are at least 6 different individuals appearing at various locations. All retail employees who died in workplace incidents. All still trying to complete their final work assignments. My pen stopped moving. 6. A department store manager in Phoenix, still trying to complete a store closing inventory. A electronics specialist in Denver, appearing every night to finish a product display. A fashion buyer in Seattle, documenting merchandise for a seasonal transition that never happened. They're all still working. They don't know they're dead, Jake. And there's something else. The incidents are accelerating. More locations, more frequent appearances, more security guards getting transferred for asking questions. What happens if we don't get transferred? What if we keep investigating? Long pause. Jake, I need you to listen very carefully. The security supervisor at Westfield Plaza refused his transfer. He insisted on staying to document the complete phenomenon. That was 6 months ago. Where is he now? Nobody knows. His replacement was told he took early retirement, but his family says he never came home from his final shift. His car was found in the mall parking lot, keys still in the ignition. The fluorescent lights above my desk suddenly seemed too bright. Tom, what do you think happened to him? I think he got too close to the truth. I think he tried to make direct contact. Direct contact with Margaret, or whoever is appearing at his location. Jake, these aren't just random hauntings. There's a pattern, a purpose. They're trying to complete something specific, and they're running out of time. Running out of time for what? I don't know. But the appearances are becoming more frequent, more intense. Other security guards report that the individuals are starting to acknowledge the cameras, looking directly at them as if they know they're being watched. I thought about last night's footage, how Margaret had paused near monitor 17 as if she was aware of its presence. Tom, what do you recommend? Document everything, but don't push management for answers. Don't demand access to classified files. And whatever you do, don't try to communicate with her directly. What if she's trying to communicate with us? Then you need to decide if completing her unfinished business is worth risking whatever happened to the guard at Northridge Plaza. After hanging up, I stared at my incident reports, my documentation, my careful analysis of Margaret's nightly routine. I wasn't just investigating a security anomaly. I was part of a regional network of witnesses to something far larger than a single haunting. Margaret Chen was still working, but she wasn't working alone. And the people documenting her activities had a disturbing habit of disappearing when they got too close to the truth. Patricia called me in her office at 6 a.m., an hour before my shift was supposed to end. When I arrived, she had 2 cups of coffee waiting and a file folder I'd never seen before. Jake, we need to have a conversation about your recent phone calls. My blood went cold. You've been monitoring my communications? Security supervisors who start contacting other locations trigger automatic alerts in our system. It's part of Protocol 7-Alpha. She opened the folder. Tom Rodriguez, Marcus Williams, Robert Chen. All flagged conversations. I sat down slowly. Patricia, what exactly is going on here? She took a long sip of coffee, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely tired. Jake, I've been the director of this mall for 22 years. I was assistant manager when the original fire happened. I was here when Margaret died. You knew her personally. Margaret was one of our best employees. Dedicated, thorough, completely committed to her work. She volunteered for the overnight inventory project because she wanted to ensure everything was perfect for the renovation. Patricia pulled out a photograph from the folder. It showed the mall staff from 1987, including a younger version of herself standing next to Margaret Chen. The fire wasn't an accident, Jake. It was caused by faulty wiring in the old electrical system. The mall's parent company knew about the safety issues, but decided the renovation would address them. They were wrong. You've known about Margaret's appearances from the beginning. The first sighting was 6 months after the fire. Night security called me at home, reporting impossible footage of someone shopping after hours. I thought it was grief, imagination, some kind of psychological response to the tragedy. She turned to another page in the folder, but the sightings continued. Different guards, consistent details, undeniable documentation. The parent company sent specialists to investigate. What did they find? That Margaret and the other victims were still here, still trying to complete their work. The specialists determined that confronting them directly or attempting to remove them could result in complications. What kind of complications? Patricia's hands trembled slightly. The guard who tried to communicate directly with Margaret in 1995 was found catatonic at his post. He spent 3 months in psychiatric care, claiming that Margaret had asked him to help her finish her inventory. When he refused, she showed him what happened during the fire. I felt the coffee turn to acid in my stomach. He experienced the fire? Every detail. The smoke, the heat, the panic, the realization that the exits were blocked. He experienced Margaret's death firsthand. It broke his mind. So the company decided to contain rather than resolve. We established monitoring protocols. Document the appearances, track the patterns, but never interfere. The parent company determined that Margaret and the others were essentially harmless as long as they were left alone to complete their routines. But they're not completing their routines. They're stuck in an endless loop. Patricia nodded. That's the problem we're facing now. The appearances are becoming more frequent, more intense. Margaret is starting to acknowledge the cameras. Other locations are reporting similar escalations. She knows she's being watched. We think she's becoming aware that something is wrong, that her work should have been completed decades ago. That's why Protocol 7-Alpha includes provisions for personnel transfers. You transfer guards before they can make contact. We protect guards from experiencing what happened to the one in 1995. Jake, you don't understand what it would mean to help Margaret finish her work. What would it mean? Patricia opened to the final page of the folder. It contained architectural plans, inventory sheets, and what looked like a comprehensive work schedule. Margaret wasn't just doing routine inventory. She was documenting everything for the renovation project. Every piece of merchandise, every display, every operational detail. Her final task was to compile a complete record of the mall's commercial operations. A record of what? Every store, every employee, every customer transaction, every operational procedure. She was creating a comprehensive database of how the mall functioned. The parent company needed this information to design the new facility. I stared at the plans. She was mapping the entire commercial ecosystem. And if she completes that work, if she finally finishes documenting everything she was supposed to record in 1987, she'll have a complete understanding of how retail operations function. Not just our mall, but every location she's visited. What happens then? Patricia closed the folder. We don't know, but the specialist believed that completing her work might allow her to move on, or it might give her complete control over retail operations in the region. Control how? Margaret was brilliant with systems, Jake. If she understands how everything connects, how every store operates, how every employee functions, how every customer behaves, she might be able to influence all of it. I thought about Margaret's methodical shopping patterns, her systematic documentation, her expansion to multiple locations. She's not just finishing her inventory. She's learning how everything works. And the more she learns, the more power she might have over it. Jake, we need you to continue documenting her activities, but you cannot try to help her complete her work. What if she directly asked for help? Patricia's face went pale. Then you call me immediately and request an emergency transfer. Because once Margaret realizes that living people can help her finish her work, she won't take no for an answer. And if I refuse the transfer, then you'll learn firsthand what it feels like to burn to death while trying to complete an impossible task. I left Patricia's office with new understanding of why so many security guards had accepted transfers. But I also understood something else. Margaret Chen wasn't just a dedicated employee trying to finish her work. She was systematically learning how to control every aspect of retail operations. And she was running out of patience with the people who were supposed to help her. Patricia's warnings echoed in my mind as I prepared for what I knew would be my final shift at Westfield Plaza. The transfer paperwork was already on my desk, waiting for my signature. Valley Springs Mall in Nevada. Effective immediately after I completed my current assignment. But I couldn't leave Margaret trapped in her endless loop. Not when I understood what she was trying to accomplish. At 2:30 a.m., I made a decision that would either save Margaret Chen or destroy my sanity. I activated the mall's public address system. The intercom connected to every speaker in the building. If Margaret could hear, if she was truly present during her appearances, she would hear me speaking. I positioned myself at the security desk with monitor 17 displaying the food court, waiting for 2:47 a.m. The timestamp changed. 2 hours and 47 minutes. She appeared, materializing between the food court tables exactly as she had every night for months. But this time I was ready. Margaret Chen, this is security. Can you hear me? She continued walking toward Electronics Express, showing no response to my voice. Margaret, I know you're trying to complete your inventory project. I know you've been working on this for 37 years. Still no response. She entered Electronics Express and began her methodical examination of the smartphone displays. Margaret, I have your original work assignment. I know what you need to finish. She froze. For the first time in months of surveillance footage, Margaret Chen stopped moving. She stood perfectly still in the electronics department, her hand halfway to a display phone. Then she turned and looked directly at monitor 17. The camera captured her face in perfect detail. Her eyes were focused, aware, and desperately sad. She mouthed words I couldn't understand from the camera angle. I switched to the mall's internal communication system, accessing the store-level speakers in Electronics Express. Margaret, I can help you complete your work, but I need you to tell me what you need. She walked closer to the camera, her eyes never leaving the lens. When she spoke, her voice came through the store's security system with perfect clarity. I can't find my timesheet. The words hit me like a physical blow. After 37 years of endless work, she was still concerned about clocking in properly. Margaret, you clocked in on March 14th, 1987. You've been working continuously since then. Your shift should have ended at 3:15 a.m. I need to finish the renovation inventory. Mr. Patterson is expecting the complete report by morning. Mr. Patterson, I'd seen that name in the 1987 personnel records. The renovation project manager who died in the fire. Margaret, the renovation was completed decades ago. The new mall was built, but your inventory work was never officially finished. She looked confused, glancing around Electronics Express as if seeing it for the first time. This isn't Morrison's. Where's Morrison's? Morrison's burned down, Margaret. You died in the fire, but you've been trying to complete your work ever since. Her face crumpled with an expression of profound loss and realization. I'm dead, yes, but you've been working for 37 years, trying to finish what you started. Margaret, I have your original assignment. I can help you complete it properly. She nodded eagerly. I need to document electronics, fashion, and jewelry inventory. Then compile the comprehensive report for the renovation team. Margaret, I'm going to help you. But first, I need you to call the others. Others? The other employees who were working that night. They're still trying to finish their assignments too, at different locations. I need all of you together to complete the project properly. Margaret's expression changed, becoming more focused and determined than I'd ever seen in the surveillance footage. David is working on custodial operations documentation at Valley Plaza. Sarah is completing fashion merchandising reports at Crossroads Mall. Miguel is documenting security procedures at Riverside Shopping Center. Can you contact them? We've been trying to coordinate our work for years, but we can't combine our reports without the original project files. Where are the original project files? Margaret pointed toward the vacant anchor store space. Mr. Patterson kept everything in the project office. Below Morrison's, in the basement level. I felt my heart skip. Margaret, there is no basement level. This mall was built on a slab foundation. The old basement is still there. Under the new construction, Mr. Patterson's office is still there, with all the renovation files. She was right. The architectural plan showed that the new mall had been built over the old foundation, but the basement level of Morrison's had been sealed rather than demolished. Margaret, if I help you access the project office, if I help you complete the renovation inventory, will you and the others be able to finish your work? Yes, we can compile the final report and submit it to management. Then we can clock out. All of you, everyone who's been working on this project. Everyone, David, Sarah, Miguel, and the others at different locations. We can finally go home. I looked at the surveillance monitors showing our empty mall, thinking about the security guards who had been transferred, the one who had disappeared, and Patricia's warnings about the consequences of helping Margaret complete her work. But I also thought about Margaret Chen, who had been trapped in an endless work shift for 37 years, trying to complete a task that should have taken a few hours. Margaret, I'll help you, but I need you to promise me something. What? When you finish your work, when you submit your final report, you have to let go. You have to accept that your shift is over. She smiled for the first time in any of the surveillance footage. I promise. I just want to finish my work and go home. I grabbed my keys and headed for the sealed basement access that I'd never known existed. It was time to help Margaret Chen clock out. The basement access was hidden behind a maintenance panel in the vacant anchor store space. Margaret guided me through the intercom system as I used my master keys to unlock sections of the old mall that had been sealed for decades. There's a service corridor behind the electrical panel. Her voice crackled through the speakers. Follow it down 23 steps. The stairs were concrete, dusty, and led into darkness that my flashlight barely penetrated. The air was stale, carrying the faint smell of smoke that had lingered for 37 years. At the bottom, I found myself in a perfectly preserved basement office from 1987. Morrison's project headquarters had been sealed when the new mall was constructed, creating a time capsule of the renovation that never happened. File cabinets lined the walls. Blueprints covered a large table. Computer terminals from the 1980s sat silent on metal desks. And there, exactly where Margaret said it would be, was a filing cabinet labeled Renovation Inventory Project. Chen, Project Coordinator. I could see the files. Margaret, what do you need me to do? Her voice came through clearer down here, as if being closer to her original workspace strengthened her presence. Open the cabinet. There should be inventory sheets for electronics, fashion, and jewelry departments. Each section needs completion signatures and final counts. I pulled out thick folders containing partially completed forms. Margaret's handwriting covered pages of merchandise listings, but many sections were blank, waiting for data that had never been recorded. Margaret, these forms are from 1987. The inventory you're documenting doesn't exist anymore. The inventory exists in the current stores. I've been documenting it every night for 37 years, but I need to compile it into the original project format. I understood. Margaret had been collecting the data she needed, but she couldn't complete her work without the proper documentation system. What do you need me to write? Start with electronics. I've counted 247 smartphones, 156 tablets, 89 laptop computers, and 334 accessories. Write those numbers in Section A. As I wrote, something extraordinary happened. The basement office began to warm, and I could hear faint sounds of activity above us, as if the old mall was coming back to life. Margaret, are the others here? They're arriving. David is documenting custodial supplies in the service areas. Sarah is recording fashion inventory in the storage rooms. Miguel is updating security equipment lists. The sounds above grew more distinct. Footsteps, voices, the familiar noise of people working efficiently in a large building. How many of you are there? 12. Everyone who was working the renovation project that night. We've been trying to coordinate our reports for decades, but we needed access to the original files. I continued transcribing Margaret's inventory data, filling in forms that had waited 37 years for completion. As I worked, the basement office felt increasingly normal, as if I was simply helping complete a project that had been temporarily interrupted. Jake, you need to understand something. Margaret's voice was stronger now, more present. When we submit this final report, when we officially complete the renovation project, it will activate protocols that were established in 1987. What kind of protocols? The renovation wasn't just about updating the mall. It was about creating a new model for retail operations. Advanced inventory management, customer behavior analysis, integrated systems that could monitor and influence shopping patterns. I stopped writing. Margaret, what are you saying? The renovation project was designed to give management complete control over retail operations. Real-time inventory tracking, customer preference monitoring, employee behavior modification. We were documenting everything needed to implement total retail control. The forms in my hands suddenly felt heavier, and completing this project activates those systems. It completes the implementation that started 37 years ago. Jake, we never wanted to gain control of anything. We just wanted to finish our work and go home. But the systems we were documenting, they're still waiting to be activated. I looked around the basement office, realizing I was surrounded by the infrastructure for something far more significant than simple inventory management. Margaret, what happens when you submit the final report? The renovation protocols activate. Every shopping center that was part of the original network receives the completed systems. Managers gain access to tools that can monitor and influence every aspect of customer behavior. And what happens to all of you? We finally clock out. We go home. Our work is finished. Above us, the sounds of coordinated activity continued. 12 employees working together to complete a project that would fundamentally change how retail operations functioned. Jake, I need you to make a choice. You can help us finish our work, activate the systems, and let us finally rest. Or you can leave us trapped here forever, still trying to complete an impossible task. I held the inventory forms, understanding that completing them would give corporate management unprecedented control over shopping behavior. But refusing would condemn Margaret and the others to eternal work. There's a third option, isn't there, Margaret? What do you mean? What if we complete your work, but submit the report to someone other than the original management structure? What if we make sure you get a clock out without activating systems that could harm people? Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Jake, who would we submit our report to? I thought about Tom Rodriguez, Marcus Williams, and a network of security guards who had been documenting these incidents across multiple locations. What if we submit your final report to the people who have been watching over you? The security supervisors who have been protecting your work for decades. Would that allow us to complete our assignments? Margaret, you've been working continuously for 37 years. Your dedication has been documented by dozens of people. If anyone deserves to clock out with honor, it's all of you. Then help us finish the forms. Jake, help us finally go home. I picked up my pen and continued transcribing 37 years of impossible inventory data, knowing that I was about to complete the most important work assignment in retail history. It took 3 hours to complete all the forms. Margaret's voice guided me through decades of accumulated inventory data, while the sounds above indicated her colleagues were finishing their respective assignments. By 5:30 a.m., I had documented the most comprehensive retail analysis ever compiled. Jake, we need to submit the final report to complete our work assignments. I looked at the thick folder of completed forms, knowing they represented 37 years of dedicated labor by 12 employees who had died trying to finish their jobs. Margaret, I'm going to submit your report to someone who will ensure it's handled properly. I pulled out my phone and called Tom Rodriguez in Oregon. Jake, it's 5:30 a.m. What's happening? Tom, I need you to conference in every security supervisor in our network. We're about to receive the most important documentation in retail history. Within 20 minutes, I had 15 security supervisors on a conference call, all of whom have been documenting similar phenomena at their locations. Margaret, are you ready to present your final report? Her response came through the basement speakers with newfound clarity and strength. Attention management personnel. This is Margaret Chen, project coordinator for the 1987 Morrison's Department Store Renovation Initiative. I am submitting the completed comprehensive retail analysis as requested on March 14, 1987. For the next hour, Margaret and her colleagues presented their findings to our impromptu management team. Their data was extraordinary. Detailed analysis of customer behavior patterns, inventory optimization strategies, employee efficiency metrics, and operational procedures that surpassed anything I'd seen in modern retail. But most importantly, they presented it as dedicated employees completing their assigned work, not as entities seeking to control retail operations. The renovation project documentation is now complete, Margaret announced. All departments have submitted final reports. All inventory counts have been verified. All operational procedures have been documented. Tom Rodriguez spoke for our group. Margaret Chen and project team members, your work has been received and approved by current management. Your dedication over the past 37 years has been exceptional. You are hereby officially clocked out with full honors. The basement office fell silent. Then Margaret's voice came through one final time, carrying an emotion I'd never heard before: relief. Thank you. We can finally go home. The sounds above us began to fade. The warmth in the basement office gradually returned to normal temperature. The sense of presence that had filled the space slowly diminished. On monitor 17, which I'd left running upstairs, I watched Margaret Chen appear in the food court one last time. But instead of beginning her shopping routine, she walked directly to the camera and smiled. Thank you for helping us finish our work, Jake. Then she faded away, not disappearing abruptly as she had every other night, but gradually, peacefully, like someone walking into sunlight. The other security supervisors on the conference call reported similar final appearances at their locations. David, Sarah, Miguel, and the others appeared briefly at their respective malls, acknowledged the cameras with gratitude, then departed with the same peaceful transition. Jake, Tom's voice came through the phone. What happened to the renovation protocols? The corporate control systems? I looked at the completed forms in my hands. The data belongs to the people who documented it. Margaret and her team completed the work assignment, but they submitted it to us, not to the original corporate structure. So we have access to 37 years of advanced retail analysis without the control mechanisms. We have the knowledge they wanted to share, presented as their final gift to the people who watched over them. I climbed back upstairs to find them all exactly as it should be at 6 a.m. Empty, quiet, and normal. But for the first time in months, it felt peaceful rather than haunted. Patricia arrived an hour later to find me completing my final incident report. Jake, the transfer paperwork won't be necessary. The anomalous activity has been resolved. What do you mean resolved? Margaret Chen and her colleagues have completed their work assignments and clocked out. There won't be any more incidents requiring Protocol 7-Alpha. Patricia stared at me with a mixture of relief and disbelief. How? We gave them what they wanted most: recognition for their dedication and permission to finally go home. Over the following weeks, the network of security supervisors shared Margaret's team's research with retail management at various locations. The insights led to improved working conditions, better inventory systems, and more humane employee policies. The data became Margaret's legacy. 37 years of observations about how retail operations could be improved to benefit both employees and customers, rather than simply maximizing corporate control. I remained at Westfield Plaza as head of security, but my job description expanded to include employee welfare monitoring and workplace safety analysis. The position was inspired by Margaret's dedication to thorough, caring work. Every night at 2:47 a.m., I check monitor 17. It shows an empty food court, quiet and peaceful. But sometimes, just sometimes, I think I see a faint reflection in the camera lens. A woman in a navy blazer, finally at rest, knowing her work was completed with honor. Margaret Chen worked 37 years of overtime to finish a single assignment. But in the end, she taught us that the most important part of any job isn't the task itself. It's the dedication to do it right and the dignity of being allowed to finish what you started. Her timesheet was finally, properly, and permanently closed.